So it's great to have you, Swapnil sir, on our podcast. The name of our podcast is Raw Talent, and we would be shooting the episode 2 of our podcast. So let's start with tell us something more about yourself, about your journey.
Sure. So, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to see such initiative by college students. It would be perfect if you could, increase the reach of this and, help other people as well. So yeah, about me, my name is Swapnil. I'm a 2016 graduate in computer science from IIT Guwahati. I started my career in Amazon, where I worked for 2 years as a software developer. Somewhere along the line, I kind of plateaued in learning. Like I was feeling I was not learning enough, so I switched to a startup, uh, Misho, if you have heard. So yeah, and right now I am sort of working on an independent project. It's a productivity tool for web developers, and like you can check it out at requestly.io.
Wesley.com. Uh, so, just tell us more about this product that you are working on right now and what is it and how did you get that idea? How did you start with it? What does it do?
Sure. So it started with the simple idea of so like if you are developing on anything on front end, really, like any website or anything. So if you want to test out things, sometimes you need to make those changes and then deploy them on your like production environment. And it can
Mhm.
get so like for example, when I was in Amazon, so doing a simple change and testing it out took like 15 to 20 minutes. uh, so when you're doing anything locally, I think that works well. You have like live hot reload and stuff. You can
Mhm.
see those changes quickly. But in some, like, maybe you can call them legacy environments, wherein you have a set build
Mhm.
process and it takes a lot of time to see your changes reflected. So for that, it's a tool which sort of intercepts the network requests and replaces it with a file on your local machine. So let's say if you're
Okay.
making some changes to example.com, you have a JavaScript file and you're making some changes. Instead of uploading the whole file, what you can do is you can intercept example.com slash maybe index.js, and you can redirect it to your local machine. So you can basically see your changes on a live environment without deploying.
So that's amazing. So you told this process was tougher in Amazon when you were working there.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
do you think they are adopting any of such features, or are they sticking to their environment? And what is their environment, and what does it look like, and what's the process that is followed there?
Yeah, so there is a pipeline wherein so okay, so there are like in a production environment you have this dev setup box where you make your
Mhm.
changes and test them out. Then you have a staging area where you all of your merged changes, like whatever your pull requests are reviewed and approved, you get those merged into a branch and you push them out into a staging server where you kind of
Mhm.
run all of your unit tests and integration tests. And after that, you promote it to a QA environment wherein you do regression testing, you run some shadow tests. So by shadow
Mhm.
tests, what I mean is that uh, so what we used to do was we took a sample of our production log. So let's say if there are 100 requests hitting at the server at a point of time, we just took one of them and played it or sort of replayed it on the QA server and see uh, if there's any difference in the responses. So that's what I mean by shadow testing. So we used to do that, and since the scale was like we used to get around 10,000 requests a second. So we replayed around 1% of them, so 100 requests a second. And by that,
Yeah.
since we picked them up randomly, so we would say with a probability that, okay, these changes do not break anything, that's
Mm.
actually important to us. So yeah, these are the different
Okay.
processes. So yeah, that was a like sort of QA was the last stage. Once that is done, we started rolling out the changes in a phased manner. Yeah. So yeah, this
Mm.
was the process we followed. So it's a pretty long process compared to what we
Exactly.
used to
So
do in college.
yeah, it's a bit it seems tough. Like we both are web developers and we have been doing React and Node and he has been doing Django as well. So right now we are trying to build a project of our own. We are trying to make an OLX for our college,
Okay.
if you could call that.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to follow all the best practices that we could. And so, like hearing this from you, it's a very long pipeline, and we only have some pre-commit tests, and right now we haven't even set up testing. So, like if we are in college, and when I see these things, we get intimidated by these. So, did you know all these procedures before joining Amazon? And if you did, how did you learn? And if not, how will you learn, or how will we learn this or implement these in our projects?
Yeah. So yeah, to be frank, there's no one to, really talk about these things at college. Professors, like
Exactly.
almost all professors follow an outdated syllabus. So you never get to know these things. But I would say
Hmm.
don't get intimidated by all these. These are there for a reason. These are so it depends on the scale that you're working on. Uh, I would say that so for example, for the projects that were we are starting afresh, even in Amazon. For new projects, we wouldn't follow such a rigorous procedure. We would probably like you mentioned, you have like one testing environment, that's all. I think that would be enough for a new project. Can you hear me?
No, yeah, I guess there was some issue.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I was saying, so for new projects, the
Hmm.
procedures are not that rigorous, and I think that is the takeaway here, that please don't be intimidated by all of these. They are there for a
Hmm.
reason, and for new projects, we don't really need to include all these
Okay.
things. And I also like I didn't know any of these while in college, and uh, when I joined Amazon, and when I did my first project, uh, I was like, okay, ये तो किसी ने
Hmm.
बताया ही नहीं. uh,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
why we are having these sessions so that like college students are not in a false hope that everything is the same that they are being taught in the college, and it's quite different out there. We have done very small projects, but we can feel the difference.
Mhm.
And given that people like you are experienced in industry, we really wanted your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think it's I think you learn these things with time. So
Hmm.
company, you will learn such kind of practices depending on the scale they are in, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay to learn this way, because otherwise, what will happen is, like for example, uh, if you start reading about all of these uh,
Hmm.
practices, so most probably what would end up happening is you would end up over engineering things, which
Uh,
is like not really it's a very
mhm.
hard, it's a trap, like really it's something very hard to get out of once you have
Right.
started over engineering. I think that that happens more than we may like to admit. Like even if you remove all the testing and all those things, even if so like let's say you are developing an OLX in your college, so even
Mhm.
you might have searched for like what technologies are you using.
React right now in the front end, and for the back end, we are using Django.
Okay, so I'm sure you must have like searched for the optimum project structure and
Yeah.
what sort of optimizations can you do,
Hmm.
uh, and this would end up so there's no end. You just
Right.
end up just reading and reading, and then you would end up not releasing the product, and or maybe like delaying the product.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to do is you just release the product and learn things on the go. So if you actually start
Okay.
seeing traction in the your OLX platform, and once you actually have a requirement for optimizing things, I think that's when you should be on the lookout for these things.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So the next point, let's talk about Vue.js and how do you compare it with React? And also, you have been having some Vue.js meetups, so tell us more about that.
Sure. So yeah, so yeah, I've been running Vue.js meetups in Bangalore for around 3 years now, and
Hmm.
right now it's at a stage where you can see these jobs coming up, and you can find a lot of people using Vue.js. 3 years back, it was
Hmm.
not that case. 3 years back,
Okay.
if you just talk about, let's say, front end development, everyone was using React, and
Right.
yeah, the rest Angular. So Vue was like really a upcoming framework, but I think now it has come to a point wherein, uh, so for example, a lot of our uh, like participants in the meetup are from React background, or rather, I would
Hmm.
say like most of the front end audience has now a React background. So
Okay.
yeah, so many of the people who have been introduced to Vue, I think they have found it pretty useful, especially for small scale projects. So I don't mean to say that Vue is not good for large scale projects. I would say it's at par with React, but on the small scale of projects is where it really shines. And I would say
Okay.
that's where it like if you have to pick React versus Vue for a college project or for anything really that you need to just test things out, I think Vue would be the should be the default choice. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. Mhm.
And so, how is the like we are studying in Patiala right now, Harbour Institute, and like I have never been to Bangalore. I don't know if Jay has been, but what is the culture like? And if you have been to other cities, how is it different? Like, why is it called the Silicon Valley of India? And uh, so, like you are talking about meetups, so it is rare to find them out here. But in Bangalore, I guess there are meetups a lot. And how does meetup help you?
Yeah, definitely. So like I come from Udaipur. So
Okay.
we don't have any such culture. Like so right now also
Hmm.
I'm sitting in Udaipur, and like uh, we we simply don't have any. And compared to Bangalore,
Yeah.
where I remember uh, we never were able to hold a meetup without clashing it with some other ones. So either
Right.
Oh,
so like we have these Vue meetups every month, and either it clashes with a JS lovers meetup, or it clashes with React meetup, or it clashes with
Hmm.
like Go meetup. Like you have like lots of meetups going on in Bangalore, and I would
Hmm.
say like you just pick up any weekend, just pick up any Saturday or Sunday, and you definitely if you search around on meetup.com, you would find at least 5 to 10 meetups happening on that day, and that's really
Nice.
like
Hmm.
I haven't like seen that kind of culture anywhere else. And also, so
yeah.
like when I just uh, came to Bangalore back in 2016, I went to like almost every other meetup. I would go to a
Hmm.
Python meetup, I would go to a data science meetup, I would go to a Java, every meetup I would find, I just go there. And
Hmm.
I've found a lot of friends that way. So like
Okay.
meet a lot of like-minded people. So see, uh, if you are in Bangalore, like if you're anywhere, and if you are taking out time on a weekend to go to a meetup, like physical meetup,
Mm-hmm.
you're going there in Bangalore, where one side traffic would at least cost you 60 minutes. Uh,
Yeah.
so the people you find there are really like motivated to learn more, and
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
you definitely find some people who you would like gel with really well, and like
Mm-hmm.
you grow together basically. Like in college we have a
Right.
peer group, right? You have folks
Yeah.
with whom you learn together. It becomes a bit difficult after college, yes, but I think meetups have helped me like fill that gap of keep finding like-minded people. Yeah.
Nice. You run Dev Swag, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It
like
all about
we
this.
really love swags. Yeah. So maybe the swag guy. What is it all about, and uh, how does it? How did you start that?
Yeah, so I think it really started back in college.
Mm-hmm.
So when I entered college, I like almost didn't knew anything about programming, or like not. I didn't know any programming language as such. So I was just learning things
Mm-hmm.
in my first year, and that's where I came across like some competitions where you would get some swag. Either you get a T-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
get things like that, or maybe just some stickers. And I made it a point
Mm-hmm.
to go to every such event, and that's
Right.
how actually I started learning things. So for example, in my first year, there was a I think there was a hackathon on Google App Engine. I'm not sure if it's still
Okay.
around, if people still use it, but yeah, it was a thing back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, back in, I think this was in 2012. There was a hackathon there, and I just learned it to participate in that hackathon. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't end up winning though, but yeah, uh, next hackathon was on Android. So yeah, uh, I spent the previous 2 weekends learning Android, and yeah, I think we won that hackathon. So that was good. And then after winning something, I just got addicted, and I
Yeah.
just uh, uh, anywhere there was a mention of swag, I would be there. I I over the years, like I learned, even I used to like participated in this competitive programming, coach have had these t-shirts that they used
Right.
to give out, and platforms like Hacker Rank and Hacker Earth. Yeah, Hacker Earth, I remember they used to give these t-shirts out. So yeah, I think I would you know say that most of my learnings in college were side kind of fueled by a desire to get more swag. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's when I felt I should maybe curate a list of all such things somewhere, so that
Mm-hmm.
students get this uh, motivation to learn these things. So yeah, so DevSwag is a like place for, I think it's primarily targeted at students. Just find them,
Okay.
uh, just see there are difficulty levels tagged there. You just see what kind of difficulty level you want to pick, and you see what kind of swag you want to play for. If I may say. So, for example, there is something like build an Alexa skill and get an Echo Dot,
Right.
build a Google Action and get a mini Google Home Mini, something things like that.
Yeah, we both have a Google Home at our homes.
Oh,
We did that. Yeah, Google Actions developer, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, so I
it's
think
a really good way.
yeah, so I think for people like me, who got motivation
Mm-hmm.
through this, I thought there will be a lot of people who need some sort of motivation to push themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
once you get into the world of tech or programming, then it's easier to you know what to learn, uh, what to look out for. But I think it's hard to get started, and I think yeah, DevSwag is meant to give that initial motivation for students to get started and learn something new.
So, in the starting, you mentioned that you left, I guess, the place where you were working because you didn't feel that you were getting that learning experience a lot.
Yeah.
So you left Amazon for that,
Yep.
right? So what do you think? Like people aspire to uh, like work in companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, etc. And you left Amazon's job. So what would you say about that? Like, does working in a large company hamper your learning experience, or was it a personal thing? Or
So I would say that learning is different for different people. Uh,
Mhm.
so like in college I ended up learning a lot. uh,
Right.
we are like I thankfully I found a really good peer group, and we like pushed each other ourselves, and we did a lot of cool projects in college, and we learned a lot. So I think that factored in. So I think after 2 years or so, I personally felt that I'm not learning enough, and maybe I should, see what else is out there. Uh,
Mm.
it also has a sort of like you need to always have a safety net in hand. So I would say
Right.
that since I was doing competitive programming in college, so I sort of had that. Maybe confidence, or yeah, I had the confidence that you can always get back if things don't work out. The
Okay.
decision was mostly like inspired by this like Bezos regret minimization principle. uh,
Mhm.
so it basically
Okay.
says that if so for any decision you just look back, not look back, you just project forward yourself, uh, and let's say to when you're 80 years old, and look back and see what decision would you regret the most. So yeah, I looked through it through that lens, and then I like I made the decision key, I would never regret uh, leaving Amazon and trying out new things, but I would always regret staying at Amazon and uh, continue to
Mm.
stagnate. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was the rationale behind it.
So, you write a lot, like you write a lot of blogs, I guess, or I've seen your news list, and you have written a lot of book notes.
Yeah,
So I can assume that you are an avid reader.
yeah,
So so
definitely.
for someone like us or like you, who is into programming and likes this stuff, likes to explore stuff, what are your top three books that you would recommend for us to start with to
So,
get into that habit
are you looking for technical books or general?
in general?
Hmm. Okay. So in general, I would recommend the first would be Getting Things Done. Uh,
Mm.
it allows, so it's helpful when you seem to have a lot of things on your plate, and you seem to be overwhelmed by
Right.
things that you are doing this, you're doing that, you have like three side projects going, you also want to do this and do that. So I think Getting Things Done really helps you with prioritizing things, and it's basically a course on sort of time management, which I think is the
Mm.
key to everything. uh, the
Right.
next book I would recommend is Non-Violent Communication. Uh,
Mm.
it might not seem like a good book on face value. What I'll do with that, but trust me, it has helped me a lot. uh, communication and getting your points across in a way that
Mhm.
respects everyone uh, is a,
Right.
is a life skill, I would say. I would just like one say that it is something that should be taught in college itself. uh, all
Mhm.
the other
Yeah.
things that are not that word, but I would say this is something that I would say you can dedicate a semester on it. uh, third is okay. Third, I would say third. Let me guess. Third, I would say factfulness. Factfulness
Mhm.
is a feel-good book. It's just
Okay.
uh, you might see that there are lots of bad things happening in the world, or you might have a perception of all the bad things happening in the world, and also it's because the media hypes it. Uh, but
Right.
yeah, it really takes a
Yeah.
statistical approach and shows you how to, it shows you a good side of the world. That we are
Mhm.
progressing in the right way. Yeah, so that's a feel good book. Just it's a quick read. Just read it, and I think it's helpful.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Jay, would you like to ask more questions?
Uh, yeah, so we always wanted to know about what has been your preferred tech stack up till now, and how should someone get started as a beginner in programming?
Okay. Uh, so I'll tell you how I started. So I started with I started with C, C++,
Mhm.
which are really the basics, building blocks. I think there was a YouTube channel called uh, Bucky Roberts, or like the New Boston.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
so I learned programming from there, and after that I actually didn't like C++ much because
Mhm.
you had to go really deep. Like it felt like a low level programming language, and
Right.
that's when I think in the start of my second year I got introduced to Python, and I got hooked on it.
Mhm.
I really liked the concise syntax and how you have libraries for everything, and so it allows you to really focus on your problem solving logic itself, and
Mhm.
yeah,
not the nitty gritties of how you're actually going to implement stuff. So yeah,
Right.
so my favorite language is Python, and yeah, after going into the industry, I would say that it has slowly changed to Java, because all of
Oh,
the scalable things get reworked to, not all, but like most of the scalable things get rewritten in Java at some point of time. Uh, so yeah, my favorite stack is Python and Java, and yeah, for front end, I would say Vue definitely.
yeah.
nice. So, when did you start with backend development or uh, like proper backend development?
Um, Proper as in asking
I
about
mean, you were
college.
confident in backend, and you could write applications of your own.
So so I think it was a lot the other part. So I did a lot of projects in college, and
Mhm.
my sense of design was very bad. Like
Okay.
I hated CSS. I could
Uh,
just I just couldn't stand it. So yeah, I so very early on, I think in my second year itself, when I was reading about backend versus front end or whatever, so I was like, front end is not is not my cup of tea,
mhm.
because
Right.
I can't design stuff. So I think that's where I chose okay, I move forward with
Okay.
backend, and uh, I wouldn't say so. I would say I got comfortable with it with time, and
Mhm.
with each project that we made. Uh, so yeah, I would say this that do a lot of projects in college. So, like for example, some of the projects I did. So I did a um, so it was a port. So I made a portal to control your computer using
Mm.
like a web portal. So you can control your computer
Okay.
remotely, and
Mhm.
so it was something like from your mobile you can take screenshots of your computer, or maybe start a download torrent
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
when I'm in, when I'm in a lecture and there's something new that's coming out. So from my mobile itself I would
Mm.
start a download, things like that. So that was something we built. uh, then there was something which was sort of, it adjusted brightness depending on which uh, window
I
is in
okay.
focus.
Window.
Yeah, brightness and
Mm-hmm.
volume
Mm.
both. So like for example, if you have VLC media player in the
Mm-hmm.
focus, it would automatically adjust, and it factored for a lot of things like what is the time of day, and what was the last volume and things like that. So yeah, I would
Right.
say that projects like these helped me gain a deeper understanding, or helped me gain confidence in backend. And also the
Mm-hmm.
reason that front end was a no for me. So yeah, that just leaves you with backend.
Right.
Yeah.
So very quickly, we have like I guess 7 minutes remaining on this. So to conclude, I mean, what are your, like we asked this to the previous guy as well. What are your tips for anyone who is starting out uh, in this journey? Like we are in the second year right now, both of us. So we have 2 years of college, and then we have to go get into the industry. So what are your tips for anyone who's watching this, and what's your experience like?
Okay. uh, so it's twofold. So one is that okay, how would I put it? Okay, I'll put it this way. Whatever you do, put your output somewhere online. It
Mm,
could be, if you're learning, just write a blog post about it and post it. If you're building, let's say a backend or any front end app, just take, for example, now you have like Netlify. You can
right.
just put anything up on a subdomain of Netlify, and it's there for everyone to play around with. So whatever you do, put things out there and get feedback. uh,
Mm,
that is very underrated, in the sense that what we actually end up doing, or rather I would say, okay, what I was doing in colleges, I was reading tutorials and building some things, making some modifications and things, and that's all. I'd move on to the next
mm,
tutorial. I remember in my fourth year, I think Go was on the rise. I said, okay, I'll
yeah.
just spend a weekend on Go. So I did this. I made a don't tap the white tile sort of a game. And yeah, that was it. So I
Mhm,
think in addition to that, if you just add a feedback step at the end, you show
mhm,
it to like 5 people or 10 people and get their view on how it can be improved. It could be on your code style, it could be on your front end or your user experience, or anything really. You just, if you take feedback, I think that would go a long way. So
mm,
I would say that the earlier you start, the easier for you it is to course correct. uh,
right.
like 5 years down the line, it would require a lot of mindset change for you to be able to do things differently. But in college is
Mhm,
where your molding years are, and
mm,
it's it's tempting to go after the shiny tech syndrome. Yeah, if anything new
right.
comes out, you do a hello world and do some exercise on it. That's okay, but I think the end goal is to solve problems and get something out on the web and take feedback and learn from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Swapnil. It was really enlightening for us. Like we learned a lot of things, uh, the culture, the process followed in big companies, how you like reading books. I'll start reading more books now. Like
I would say that reading books is something that I discovered very late in life. Like I had
hmm,
a lot of free time in college. Like compared to now, I had like 10 times free time in college. So like right now, I'm able to read like one book a week. I think in college
hmm,
I had so much free time I could read like one book a day or something, or if not that,
true.
at least you could do a lot more experimentation with books. Right now I can't
Hmm,
do that. I put a lot of time in selecting books, and I can't read all of them because I have a limited time. And I
right,
would say that it's really underrated in the sense that it just reading a book gives you an entire sort of like you have a semester, you have a course subject in a semester, right? You just take that entire content, and if you read a book, it's sort of similar. So I think like
right,
after college, I think that is the only way I found to upskill in new areas.
right. All right. Thank you so much, Swapnil, for coming up on this podcast and helping us out. So we didn't have a very like a proper end goal for this podcast. It was a bit random and a bit about your story, like an interview. It is just out there for people to understand that everyone is like going into big companies is normal, and it's not something that they should dream of. Rather, they should work towards that. And we wanted to normalize that path and also like make it easier for people who are watching this. We are from DSC, a Developer Student Club, Google, from our college, and it was really great having you here. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you for having me.